The best of both worlds. The Borg have reached Federation space, and the third time's the charm as we finally get a season finale that isn't a steaming pile of crap.
The Enterprise responds to a distress signal from an outlying Federation colony, and they find no signs of life on the planet and decide to beam down to check it out.
We get a set that looks way better than most exterior sets we've seen, and all it took was a little bit of dirt.
And there's also a cool matte painting.
The colony has been scooped off the face of the planet. Admiral Hansen and Commander Shelby are talking to Picard, and they suspect it's the Borg. Shelby's in charge of coming up with a defense strategy, but they're having a hard time.
We are not ready.
Riker invites Hansen to their poker night. It felt like weird timing after they just talked about how the Borg are an imminent threat.
I agree. Hansen tells Picard that Riker has an opportunity to become a captain on the Melbourne, and he suggests that Shelby would make a good replacement on the Enterprise.
If I were you, I'd kick him in the rear end for his own good.
Admiral Hansen is played by George Murdoch, who previously played the role of God in Star Trek V.
Riker shows Shelby to her quarters, and she starts authoritatively telling him who's going to be on her away team. She mentions that she wants to serve on board the Enterprise when he leaves, but he doesn't seem to be planning on leaving.
This is supposed to create animosity between them with the threat of her forcing him out, but Riker still holds all the cards. All he has to say is, "No, I'm not leaving," and that would be that. She would just go away.
Right. I thought her challenging stance was a little bit weird.
She gave me a young Glenn Close feel.
Okay, yeah, I can see it.
If she plays her cards right, she could end up in Hook 2.
Riker invites Shelby to poker, and Wesley is there for the first time too. He falls for Riker's bluff, and Geordi basically calls him a dumbass.
With 3 jacks? What, are you kidding? Wesley, you may get straight A's in school, but there's a lot you need to learn about poker.
His acting was not very good in this scene. Shelby is overstepping her bounds by going down to the planet with Data ahead of schedule.
Which, I get, is supposed to be a demonstration of her character, but it just made everyone on the Enterprise look uncoordinated and unprofessional.
They are able to confirm that the Borg attacked the colony. Picard talks to Riker and basically asks him to take the captain's position.
You're ready to take command. And you know, Enterprise will go along just fine without you.
But Riker wants to stay on board, and he goes to talk to Troy about it. He says that Shelby reminds him of his younger self.
She comes in here full of drive and ambition, impatient, taking risks.
But Shelby was being stupid about how she was doing all those things. To me, that made Riker sound like he was saying, "I liked being a dick back in the day." Troy says that Riker is happier on the Enterprise than he's ever been, and then I realize he's probably happier now because he has access to the holodeck, and that's why he doesn't want to leave.
Shelby figures out all a Borg ship's systems are interconnected, just like the Borg themselves. She's formulating a defense strategy and shows that she doesn't need to go to bed at 6 p.m. like old man Riker.
I think we should look at modifying the plasma phaser design.
Commander, I think we should call it a night. That's an order.
It seems like he's trying to recapture the dickish ways of his youth. Is the arc of this episode going to be him realizing that he was really a dick the whole time?
The Borg hit another ship, so the Enterprise heads over there, but Geordi isn't sure that Shelby's defense plan will work.
When they pick up a Borg ship approaching, Picard is hailed by name, and the Borg tell him to beam onto their ship.
Geordi tests out Shelby's shield fixes, but it's only a temporary fix.
Damn! Shields have failed.
The Enterprise weapons are ineffective on the Borg ship, and when an energy beam hits the Enterprise near engineering, they have to evacuate, and Geordi does an unnecessary action roll under the gate right before it closes. It was awesome.
I'm also pretty sure every time they evacuate engineering, he always does that arm thing.
They managed to get away and hide in a nebula.
When they were modulating phaser frequencies, they found one that kind of worked, so the plan is to use that frequency.
In the meantime, we should retune all phasers, including the hand units, to the same frequency.
But I would have learned from my past experiences and assumed it would only work for 3 seconds before they adapt again. They want to use the Enterprise deflector dish and make it basically a super gun.
But the blast would also destroy the Enterprise, and Shelby suggests separating the saucer section, and Riker shuts her down. When she says that he should ask the captain, he says,
I bring all the alternatives to the captain's attention.
But I knew he wasn't going to talk to Picard about it. But then when he goes into Picard's ready room, Shelby is already there.
If you can't make the big decisions, Commander, I suggest you make room for someone who can.
Her passive aggressiveness was pretty goofy.
Picard can't figure out why the Borg still apparently want him specifically, and he ends up talking to Guinan about it in a very decent conversation.
As long as there's a handful of you to keep the spirit alive, you will prevail.
Picard is called to the bridge as the Borg begin a new attack.
There's some sort of magnetometric guided charges.
Yeah, okay, whatever, Riker.
The Borg force the Enterprise out of the nebula, and they start beaming over, and holy crap, in 3 seconds they adapt to the new phaser frequencies. But I would have learned from my past experiences and assumed it would only work for 3 seconds before they adapt again. Riker, for some reason, thinks he'll punch out a Borg, which doesn't work, and Picard is easily taken.
They're unable to lock onto Picard to beam him back, so they chase the Borg ship, which is now heading for Earth.
The Borg reveal,
"To facilitate our introduction into your societies, it has been decided that a human voice will speak for us in all communications. You have been chosen to be that voice."
Geordi is still working on charging their supergun, and Riker wants to take an away team over to the Borg ship, but since he's in command,
"It is inappropriate for you to lead the away team. Until the return of Captain Picard, you are in command of the Enterprise."
Shelby always has a smug look on her face, and it makes me want to punch her. And for some reason, Beverly is part of the away team.
Yeah, I didn't understand that. And Worf again proves he's probably the smartest character on the show.
"These phases have been retuned. Each has a different frequency spanning the upper EM band."
O'Brien says,
"We've matched warp velocity for transport, Commander."
Which I thought was cool. Does that mean that if the Borg changed speed during transport, they could end up in a wall?
Or just out in the middle of space?
It's cool that they took that into account. When they beam over, Beverly is impressed by a piece of Borg tech that consists of a blinking red light inside an upside-down pyramid on the ceiling.
"Look at this. This is extraordinary."
And somehow Data is able to identify what they're looking at.
And eventually, the away team figures out that they're in a PS2 video game and they need to shoot the green nodes while ignoring the red nodes. Meanwhile, the fleet is preparing its final defense for when the Borg arrive, and they start to take out the green nodes. They
force the Borg ship to drop out of warp, so the Borg start attacking them, and they begin shooting them down one by one.
Beverly goes totally out of character to kill them without hesitation. I would have expected her to try and talk to them or something, since she values life, or whatever. They see Picard, who has been assimilated and has apparently spent some time in the Borg gym.
I did think the reveal was cool, where they just kind of see him in the background first, and then he turns.
Yeah, definitely. They can't save him, so they get out of there.
Geordi's supergun attack is ready, and the Borg are restoring power, so this is their only chance to attack.
And there's no time to get Picard off.
He hails them on screen
with his cool new Borg name.
"I am Locutus of Borg."
And then Riker says,
"Fire."
Very dramatic cliffhanger. The music at the end reminded me of A New Hope when the Death Star is about to explode. Which in itself is taken from Mars. The best of both worlds. Overall,
I liked how seriously they handled the Borg threat. The last quarter or so of the episode was really good in particular, but this episode focused just as much on Riker, and Shelby was a very cartoonish antagonist for him, which was really annoying. She didn't feel like a real person, and her reaction shots in particular were really goofy. Thankfully, there is less of that as the episode goes on, and it finishes strong with a genuinely good cliffhanger. I gave it a B+, but before that last quarter, I was thinking B-, which I know is going to be controversial.
I gave this one an A. Even though Shelby is cartoonish, it's not very common that we get an episode about Riker that focuses on his character instead of his libido, but I thought this episode did a pretty nice job with that. Most of the conversations in this episode had real purpose and were well done. I'm impressed the tension stayed high for the whole time. I was afraid because it was a 2-part episode it would drag things out with unnecessary filler, but that wasn't the case. And it is interesting that even though Picard is taken and they're so focused on rescuing him, it's not really a Picard episode. I'm hoping that part 2 explores his character in this whole situation. It was a good season closer.
Agreed.